And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Jim Hackett, the President and CEO of Ford Motor Company. We're at the precipice of a major transformation in how we move in today's and tomorrow's world. Together with Bill Ford, Jim is re-engineering Ford's auto business to help lead the shift in mobility through the design of smart vehicles for a smart world to help us move more safely, confidently, and freely. Jim understands the value of innovations like electric vehicles and self-driving technology. In 2016, he was named chairman of Ford Smart Mobility, Ford's subsidiary focused on designing, building, growing, and investing in emerging mobility services. And Jim knows a thing or two about leading organizations through huge transformative periods, such as Steelcase, which he has led as CEO for 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Jim Hackett, President and CEO of Ford Motor Company, to the CES Keynote stage.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Gary. You know, we're here in a time in history talking about a topic that hasn't been reviewed since the inception of the automobile. And a good next question is, you might wonder why a furniture guy would be asked to run an automotive company. Well, I was here 25 years ago as a furniture guy when I started to see the objects that were going to be put on desks, heavy computers, landline phones, with more buttons, of course, that was going to make that desk go away. It was the linkage of the object and technology that was starting to be modeled here. And we're here today, of course, with a generation of new disruptive technologies being feathered into the automotive world. These are new technologies and innovation making it possible for us to share resources in ways that we never thought could ever be done before. I mean, think about the way our jobs have changed. These shared rides that you read about, or rooms. Food has changed, much more. We're going to suggest to you today that not everyone, though, has shared in the same benefits. Many of these new advances have prioritized scale and growth over expanding access and improving lives. Now, I've been CEO for Ford for 220 days. And in that time, I've thought about the role and responsibility in the dawn of this feathering of this new intelligence in the automobile. I keep pushing on the question, how do we combine the vehicles and technology so they become something more than just the sum of their parts, kind of a 1 + 1 = 3. Well, there are actually some important parallels and lessons if I think back in Ford's history as we begin to think about the way to introduce these revolutionary technologies into our civic life once again. When I was a kid in London, Ohio, Central Ohio, we had this old bumpy road called Route 40, and it connected us to the rest of the state the best it could. Then there was a newspaper ad that announced the launch of Interstate 70, and it was going to replace Route 40, and it became a revelation in the town. Interstate 70 and all of its promise was part of a new transportation operating system that was made up of other interstates and some additional sophisticated traffic capability. Of course, we can look back and see that spawned new industries and companies. It drove generations of personal and economic growth. The system at its inception had more than just great attraction. People were able to attend schools that they couldn't get to before if they had to walk or take a bike. High-quality health care in my little town now improved because it was easier to drive longer distance to Columbus, Ohio, to see a larger hospital system. The ability to drive longer distances opened up now the farmland outside of the town to build new, lower-cost homes. And yet, over time, as our towns and cities were designed around the automobile, parking lots overtook the community centers, and town squares were converted into intersections. Fast food chains that advertised the benefits of driving through on Interstate 70 crushed the family diners and restaurants that were on State Route 40. In fact, farms were pushed further away from the city center. Do you know that the average American meal travels 1,500 miles from farm to table today? The time we used to spend with each other is now time wasted in congestion and traffic. Well, the early automobile turned out to be the ultimate disruptor to human lives. I mean, we're glad it's here. Of course, I am as head of Ford, that matters a great deal. But there was a price for that freedom. And it was to move the creation of a world where roads that were built for cars replaced streets intended for living. I mean, this is the paradox of innovation. By enabling one kind of freedom, we constrain others. Now, everyone in this room understands this paradox. Year after year, for 5 decades here at CES, visionary entrepreneurs and innovators have come to explain how their latest products will give us some new potential. What I call access to faster, bigger, and more. We've personalized, digitized, atomized every experience you can imagine because of technology. When we can watch something, watch the game last night on my phone, how we eat, who we trust. And yet at times, this has been at the expense of our shared sense of belonging. Now, with 115 years of pioneering innovation at Ford, our company also understands this. We also know that just because these trade-offs are expected, it does not mean they're inevitable. And probably more challenging, we don't have to accept them if we don't want them. And the time has come, as I said with my first comments, to fundamentally update our approach and shift our central mission to harnessing that technology as a tool to serve human needs, to improve lives and help restore this genuine sense of community. Now, this is something that Bill Ford and I talk about often. He gave a seminal TED Talk in 2011, standing ovation, because his conscience has been on this topic as well. Our company was founded on the promise that the freedom of movement drives human progress. Feathering in now the power of artificial intelligence, the rise of certain autonomous vehicles. They're all going to be connected. For the first time in this century, we have a mobility technology that just won't incrementally improve the old system, but it can completely disrupt it. So a total redesign of the surface transportation system with humans and community are at the center. Today, the transport systems in most global cities have reached capacity. They're out of room. As more people seek to access then benefits concentrated in those great urban centers, these already stressed systems are collapsing, unleashing overwhelming pollution and paralyzing congestion. If we move quickly and dramatically shift our thinking, though, we can redesign transportation in our cities in ways that not only meet the growing demand, but improve the quality of life for everyone at the same time. It's not a dream. It's time then to bring our streets into the sharing economy, and we can't wait. Now, as technology has gotten faster, bigger, and more, it's also more invasive. People are growing increasingly more anxious about the impact that tech will have on their personal lives, and let me now add on your shared civic life. In this past year, we've seen this tension between analog and digital tensions boil over. People are afraid that countless security breaches have left personal information vulnerable to misuse. In fact, we follow this, that whole towns and neighborhoods are beginning to fight back against digital intrusions, where they close off streets to non-local drivers that are there because of gridlock, because of well-intentioned, really highly regarded navigation apps are moving the traffic off main roads through their neighborhoods. Well, together we can create cities where density and diversity give life. They're not in competition. Where packed streets and sidewalks prompt the unexpected encounter or the chance discovery and feed the innovation that is the lifeblood of cities. As my good friend, theoretical physicist Jeff West found in his research about what happens as cities scale, when you drive together diverse populations in urban environments, the likelihood of unconventional innovations increase exponentially. That's why we're going to have more people in cities. But to achieve that, we need more than just the technology. We've got to be thinking about the people. We need to align our goals as a society. We need a new way of thinking about this freedom of movement that Henry thought about, so that we consider not just the vehicles and the streets, of course, but the destinations too. We're calling it a new civic freedom, where the benefits of community can be extended to many more people across many more backgrounds. Well, imagining a dream city is easy. When you're a new CEO, you get to make things up, kind of. We're rebuilding the existing ones, though, is going to take real imagination and commitment, and something I'm committed to. We have a friend and transportation guru, Jeanette Sedek Khan in New York, worked for Michael Bloomberg, and she says, if you can change the street, you can change the world. That's why at Ford, our work on this important task of building the city of tomorrow starts at ground level. Here on, we're referring to that as the living street. I want to brag a minute. You're at CES, right? The font of technology. What you're seeing is work of a friend of mine and a super talented guy, Alex McDowell. Google him, and you'll hear about his World Building Institute. They're building future realities, gathering information in that community of architects, designers, technologists, urban planners, to envision with us the model of the living street. The living street is akin to what we all played when we were playing SimCity. It's a digital proving ground. This is actually real, that helps us take our smart vehicles, link it with the smart world, and try and understand what happens. It allows us to grapple ahead of time with technology's unintended consequences. And together with cities and partners, mayors are talking to us all the time, we're charting a human-centered course forward. Human-centered course. Now today, we show you a glimpse, and it's in the convention center, of the model of this living street, the part that's been built so far. Now, as you head down the street, you see that just the analog vehicles, really in an analog world, they're running into lines that divide the road and signs that tell the driver where to go. In the future, the systems will link the power of deep learning with edge computing or the Internet of Things. The car and the system will be talking to each other. And changing one piece of the system necessarily changes the whole. A car obviously is going to learn to drive itself, but the city transportation's grid will mutate around what the cars need. A city has an underlying operating code that reveals the meaning and the opportunities that are available for people to interact with what happens in their community. But we can't just think of cities like we did think of computers, where we're programming them to maximize efficiency. This is what I think has been wrong with the smart city trope. What we want is the depiction of the city of tomorrow that demonstrates the benefits of introducing these smart vehicles in a smart world for civic life. It's not about the city getting smarter, it's about humans having a better day. Millions more can then move into these cities, and we know, you'll see in some of the modeling, it can be less congested. I mean, look at how the curbs are full of trees. See the air blowing through the trees. When's the last time you saw air blowing through the trees in a dense city? Benches, not double-parked vehicles. See how streets can be designed so they serve a variety of functions and needs, maximizing multi-use. Flexible lanes now for walking, people biking, people who own and use businesses that want you to have access to their storefront. There's relaxation, there's exercise. There's a couple over here working on making up a date, and much more. When we look at how the intersection adapts to different street concepts, based on the safer interactions, we're starting with that, and we linked roads and curbs for drivers. The roads and curbs are battling right now. We make them symbiotic. We're just beginning to appreciate what the technology will make possible. It's early, and we appreciate the new challenges that you're going to help us solve. This is an open system. I want us to think, though, as we design it this time, about the ethical and moral questions around analog and digital tensions. And this morning, I'm going to get off stage and we're going to bring some other folks in to spend time discussing these challenges so we can design this in a way where we get it right. I mean, Henry Ford got a lot right. He was right about the freedom of movement. That's why the companies lasted so long. But if he were here, he'd want to avoid making the mistakes of the industrial age when that freedom of movement came at the expense of community for our connection to each other. He built a fake community in Dearborn called Greenfield Village before cars existed, so that he could feel what it was like where that was designed right. Well, that's why I'm here at CES. It's not to sell cars. I do like doing that, but that's not why I'm here. The system design challenge we have today is to take the passion that we know you have for vehicles and we have for giving them to you and feather in the ever-evolving technology and interpret that technology underlined in a human-centered way. We want to be the leaders in that. This is not just a challenge at Ford. The technology and services you see on the Living Street will be, as I said, open and collaborative. They're inclusive, and they're designed and deployed with active participation from people in the community. We've involved local governments, civic leaders, and citizens. It's overwhelming how interested they are in this topic. So in order for the smart vehicles for a smart world to work in these cities, I need the community here at CES to participate. I want you to be excited to work with us to usher in this new civic freedom. Okay. Well, I've asked a few of the key Ford leaders working on the technology around the Living Street to share more about what we are developing and deploying in our cities and how these new innovations will help those cities and societies broadly. And then before we leave here today, I want to introduce you to a really special guy that will help me work with the questions of the ethical and moral conflicts that this causes, and really start to wrestle with some of those tensions and big questions relating to the impact of all these new technologies with the promise of protecting civic life. Well, first up is Marcy Cleavorn. She's our president of Ford Smart Mobility, and her team, along with our partners, are developing an open platform for transportation as part of our plan to move people through cities in every way. Marcy, by the way, is also our Chief Information Officer, so she really understands technology. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Marcy Cleavorn.
Thank you, Jim, and good morning, everyone. We are so excited to be here. Last October, we announced our investment in Autonomic, and today, against the background of Living Street, I'm so excited to share some updates from our work. Ford is working with Autonomic to develop the first transportation cloud for cities, an open, cloud-based platform for mobility services. Our Transportation Mobility Cloud, or TMC, will unlock the power of connected components at all levels of city transportation systems, not simply to improve technology, but to unlock the value for people who live, work, and play in our cities. TMC will support the rapid development of services and applications that will enable people to move more efficiently and have access to smart, connected transportation. It can do this because the TMC offers a universal language and tool set across all mobility platforms and services, allowing all the players in the transportation system to interact. We are building the base of functionality of the cloud to include core elements, such as mapping, routing, and payments in a standardized way. And an infinite number of innovative new services can then be built on top of this cloud, taking advantage of the foundational elements I mentioned. We think about this similar to a box of Legos with pieces that we can combine to create different assets, products and services, to benefit city dwellers around the world. People will get access to a new mobility experience. App developers will be able to easily leverage connected vehicles and other components of the smart world, such as GPS and sensors. And cities will be able to optimize their transportation system for the residents and visitors in a way never possible before. Since every city is unique with its own regulations, traffic patterns, and local customs, our flexible assets can serve them all. For example, with control of the traffic flow enabled by TMC, cities might choose to reroute people to avoid construction, speed up emergency response, or manage traffic around major sport events or special city events. But this is not just a Ford system. We're building it for everyone. Nobody else is talking about providing an open community like this around mobility. There have been a lot of interesting innovations in mobility and connected technology. But until now, everyone has had to optimize for their own system component. That's because an open platform with a universal language and services didn't exist. That's why we're designing this with the cities in mind. We don't have the luxury of building some sort of perfect world in a laboratory. We're building solutions for cities that are already alive and functioning to benefit people like you with dynamic and diverse lives. So this has to be done with the full participation and direct engagement with the cities. Let me show you some of the real possibilities of real-time transit choreography and how it plays out in the living street. What you see here is how an application service powered by the Transportation Mobility Cloud can coordinate routes to help anyone accomplish what they need to do during their day and still get home on time. This couple is taking advantage of multimodal transit to optimize their journey home. The platform is connecting with the smart streets, with their vehicles, and everything around them. They're talking to each other and also to the Transportation Mobility Cloud that's getting them home. When that couple suddenly gets a surprise invite to help their friends celebrate their engagement, they don't have to think twice about saying they'll be there. Real-time location updates will change their routes and their modes of transportation. On the living street, the system is always at work. And when you multiply this by millions of people in hundreds of cities, you too begin to see the potential. Now, our couple can easily switch modes of transportation. Maybe they grab a self-driving Lyft. Maybe they decide to ride a bike share. With the Transportation Mobility Cloud, the result is a healthier, more dynamic city culture. It enables the transportation operating system to improve safety and reduce traffic. And it's not just about moving people. This technology will make it possible for people and goods to be connected along the same route. So when you're heading to a special event, like our couple, everything and everyone will arrive at the right place at the right time. What's the most exciting is that we're designing this with the cities in mind and the cities involved. The smart city will dynamically change the rules of the road to improve congestion, so journeys like these unfold smoothly. This is one example of what we enabled by TMC. In fact, right now, we're already using it at Ford to manage our Chariot microtransits. There also is an infinite number of innovative new services that can be built upon this cloud. And that's why we're asking you to help us imagine and create. We're inviting everyone to build applications and services that will enable the living streets and the connected vehicles of the future smart cities so they can reach their full potential. Ford has a tradition of democratizing technology, from last century's automobile to last decade's Ford Sync. We see this as a fundamental value at Ford. So we're planning an open developer community program, and we invite all of you to participate. Stay tuned for more announcements on this later this year. The reason we're so invested in building this open cloud-based platform and the services it enables is to provide people with more efficient movement and access. Eliminating congestion not only improves the efficiency of cities, it creates economic and community benefits as well. For example, it's pedestrians that are the predominant customers for ground floor retail stores. We can also manage our curbs better, remove parked and idling cars, and instead plant more trees and share fresh air with everyone in our community. Now, to talk about how we're connecting the vehicles in this system, Using cellular vehicle to everything, or CV2X technology, let me bring out Don Butler, Ford's Executive Director of Connected Vehicle Services, and I'm proud to say, a member of my team. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marcy, and good morning, everyone. You know, the TMC that Marcy just described has the potential to change the way that we move through cities. And that cloud is enabled by the smart, connected world and the data that comes from it. So I'm excited to talk to you today about that smart world where vehicles are connected, not just to each other, but to every smart component in a city. CV2X, or cellular vehicle to everything technology, has the potential to enable a city's various components and applications to share information with each other, from vehicle to pedestrians and bicyclists to the whole infrastructure, enabling collision avoidance safety systems, traffic signal prioritization, and much more. And it does this because at its most basic level, CV2X is a two-way conversation. And that conversation creates compounded data sets, which everyone, including city planners and transportation service providers, can have access to in real time to help solve mobility issues. Now today, Ford has over 700,000 connected vehicles on the road, and by next year, every new Ford vehicle in the US will be connected. And our ambition is to build on this core connectivity to bring CV2X technology to our vehicles and to cities around the world. And we're taking this major step to connect our vehicles to the environment through a strategic collaboration with Qualcomm. And we've engaged with Qualcomm in beginning field trials to demonstrate and prove the promise of the technology. CV2X is the foundational technology that will enable fast, safe, and secure communications. And we're encouraging its broad adoption. And that's one reason, in fact, that we're a part of the 5G Automotive Association. And we're also in discussions with government agencies here in the US and around the world to advocate for its adoption. Now, why is this so important? You know, people want to think that there's only one cause of congestion, but there really isn't. And there isn't one simple solution either. You can't just take vehicles off the street or just expand public transportation options. And you can't just improve the quality of data sharing. It's going to take more. Our communities are intertwined. And so to address congestion, we have to make the whole system more intelligent and more dynamic. We have to connect everything. Through CV2X technology, the data collected from connected vehicles allows us to help communities manage curb space, optimize traffic flow based on real-time vehicle usage information, and that's how we will unclog the city streets. Now, connectivity is also powering high-occupancy solutions like Chariot, for instance, which is already increasing street carrying capacity. And with CV2X, the communication between your vehicle and everything around it is instant, because this is direct communication. It doesn't require a network. That means information can be conveyed at critical moments with better performance and reliability. Let's take a look at a real-life situation and explain how it would unfold differently with our vision of the living street. CV2X enables a vehicle itself, again, without requiring a network, to communicate when a driver like this might need help. Maybe he has diabetes and he's going into shock, or he has sudden chest pains. When his life is in danger, he's not able to send a message himself, but CV2X can coordinate that response. The system could recognize the driver's distress and signal emergency responders quickly and reliably. The car can assume control from the driver, pulling over to the curb where emergency workers are then able to treat him. The vehicle can even send medical records for those drivers who have opted in to make that a fact. First responders, doctors, hospitals, They're all contacted simultaneously. Additionally, C-V2X can help redirect traffic to allow safe and immediate access to the patient. Now, this is just one example of how C-V2X would make it possible for a city to reconfigure itself for the good of its citizens by harnessing the power of a connected community. Imagine an urban environment functioning in unison to solve one man's life-threatening crisis. Imagine connecting people, vehicles, and streets to make the city safer and better. These are the outcomes that C-V2X makes possible. Everything working together in this instance to save a driver's life. Now, the safety benefits in and of themselves are very powerful. But there are also many other reasons for cities to adopt a C-V2X future, from decreased commute times to ways to help local businesses. And for those benefits to be realized, we need to help the cities get connected. And that work is being led by our Ford City Solutions division. It's the only one of its kind in the industry. And they're focused not just on how to connect cities to this new technology, but also how to help them use the data to manage their streets and traffic flow. Now, a language needs to be created so that all of this information can be synced up and all the sensors and vehicles can process that information. And we're helping to write that language, helping to craft the new rules. And by contributing to new standards and protocols that will allow everyone to work together in the future, we can ensure that we fulfill the promise of the new civic freedom that Jim Hackett was talking about earlier this morning, where once again, everyone is part of the community. Now, optimizing at the systems level also requires that the components in the transportation ecosystem are able to speak and communicate that same language. And we believe that C-V2X is that common language that brings it all together. C-V2X enables various components and applications in a city, including stoplights, signs, bikes, pedestrian devices, and more, to share information. This technology, inside an efficient, connected, and optimized transportation system, holds the potential for a whole new approach to moving goods, distributing content, and serving humanity. In the future, cities will be able to do everything from freeing up curb space to improving traffic flow. And so we're inviting others, other auto companies, other device makers, infrastructure providers, and cities to join us in realizing the promise of C-V2X. And now, I'd like to introduce Jim Farley, a legend in the auto business and a key leader of Ford's efforts around self-driving vehicles, and he's going to talk about where these elements go next. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Don, and good morning, everyone. I love being in the city where it looks like Ford has about 80% market share. Well, it's great to be here at CES and talk about the future and what's next. You know, over the past century, progress in the automotive industry has been very incremental. But that approach just is not going to work with autonomous vehicles. Today, we have the opportunity to make a much bigger leap forward, as Jim said. Self-driving vehicles can do so much more than just move us from point A to point B. They can literally transform the communities where we live. So let me explain what we mean at Ford. We're introducing a new self-driving business model. The technology race is really fascinating. It's cool to see all the new vehicles and the driver systems and how they all work together, but just adapting that to existing vehicles is really missing the big opportunity. We're thinking about a systems-based approach with a much larger impact, not only moving people, but also goods, and most importantly, serving humanity, with self-driving technology at the heart of it all. This approach is built on two important foundations: a partnership platform enabled by very flexible APIs, working with vehicles that are very, very highly utilized, And we're building a platform that connects everyone to everything. And our platform is going to be open to all businesses. So all companies involved, big or small, can operate in the system in a robust and seamless way. Secondly, the vehicle, the software, the computing systems are all being designed and built to be commercial grade, to withstand the rigors of high mileage, heavy duty use in very tough urban environments. Now this is where Ford is really different. We have deep expertise in engineering hybrid and plug-in vehicles for heavy duty use and commercial operations such as taxi fleets and police. Anytime you're not carrying goods or people in this business, you're not going to be making money. And our customers expect their vehicles to be on the road, not in the shop, being charged or getting repaired. And without that reliability and uptime, the public won't trust this new world, and the adoption of self-driving technology won't achieve its potential. Now, this year is going to be a really big year for Ford in terms of testing our self-driving vehicles. We're already partnering with Argo AI in Detroit and Pittsburgh to test and prove out the vehicle driving system and the vehicle itself. But separately, in our first city this quarter, we're going to be test driving our business model itself. We're going to be learning and incorporating those learnings into our autonomous vehicle experience by running the businesses. Now, we're already engaged with that local government. We're going to announce what that city is in the coming months ahead. We're going to be working with new and existing partners like Lyft, who've been instrumental in helping us design a great platform for ride-hailing with the necessary APIs, as well as Domino's Pizzas, which has already helped us surface critical insights on consumer experience about moving goods, which is really different. We've learned that customers want to access the vehicle maybe different than we thought. Some like keypads, some like a voice assist. We're going to be learning what side of the vehicle they go to take delivery. These insights are incredibly powerful for us, and they're going to be at the heart as we design a unique, dedicated, self-driving vehicle. We don't believe in converting a vehicle. A deep understanding of the behaviors of the customers, the businesses of our partner companies, and the needs of the cities will all differentiate our autonomous vehicle. The driving experience is new to all of us. So we believe at Ford we need to design a vehicle that is all new, just for autonomy use. The work we're doing this year will put us in a great position to scale quickly to start our business in 2021, just around the corner. And we're going to put the human at the center of that business. And today we're proud to announce our newest business partner, Postmates, with their 150,000 person-strong fleet of on-demand couriers. When you combine the power and reach of self-driving vehicles with the deep knowledge that Postmates team has of getting anything to anyone, the scale and scope of our expertise that we put into action will really grow exponentially. In addition to good delivery and ride-hailing, the most important partner for us is going to be the city themselves. Working with cities, we're committed to making sure that this network not only works great for commerce, but it also serves the underserved. Now let's show you how this next generation delivery opportunities will come to life on the living street. Think about all those small businesses that exist in a thriving urban neighborhood. The dry cleaners, the coffee and the flower shops, a local bookstore, maybe a corner grocery stand like this one. Now imagine that that corner grocery has access to a self-driving vehicle. Right now, the small business owner has to cut their hours or even close their shop to make deliveries. But with a self-driving vehicle, moving her goods would be a seamless part of her business and also the community. With this technology, delivery routes would be designed and optimized real time. They reduce traffic, improve efficiency, and support small businesses across the whole city. While that grocery delivery is on its way, another business, let's say the local dry cleaner, is able to make a delivery too, all accomplished by a seamless transition of one self-driving vehicle between both businesses. The vehicle reaches its customers quickly, there's no wasted time, no double parking, no unnecessary idling. A single self-driving vehicle doing work that used to take multiple vehicles and drivers will, of course, lower the cost to the business, reduce environmental impact on the community. It's going to make life a lot better for all of us. Customers are happy, neighborhoods are well served, and that small businesswoman is finally able to see her grocery business grow. And most importantly, the community continues to thrive. Well, picking on this theme of community, let's bring back Jim Hackett to help lead the final portion of our program today.
Jim, nice job. You know, they're going to go out in the halls and see a lot of AI technology, which is really promising. What's different about what Ford's doing versus other people?
So I think what makes us different, put simply, is that we're not just thinking about the vehicle or even the fleet. We're also thinking about the network and the software that enables all those great businesses to plug into the system. And most of all, we're thinking about how that works with actual customers.
You know, and that's the thing that I talked about earlier, is the way we blend humanity into this. Great challenge. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, imagine I talked about when Henry Ford was alive and building this vision, and he couldn't have imagined, I'm sure, what evolved. And I said to you a moment ago that we're at a threshold where the intersection of this technology and the way vehicles are prominent and what communities want is unheralded. So I wrestled with the question of what should this vehicle be accountable for? What does it need to do? And years ago, in this last life I had, I met Harvard ethicist Michael Sandel. And I had read his book called Justice. I highly recommend it. In there is the trolley car problem, which is a famous question of what does a trolley car operator do if he only has one move, which both of the moves create somebody dying. So Michael writes a book around this question and others. And essentially what he does is he believes in the lost art of democratic argument, a way to model for other communities how the exchange of ideas can serve to strengthen the bonds of communal life. And I've asked him to help our team at Ford begin to wrestle with these challenges with the capability that we're going to be bringing to market. And we want to do something fun today and open this conversation to include all of you. So please welcome Michael Sandel.
Hi, Jim.
Morning, Michael.
Hi, Jim. Well,
you know, this is the most downloaded professor on YouTube today. And when I watch your talks, I love how you engage the audience. And I thought it would be great if you could help me get at this question of what would Henry Ford do if he had a chance to do it over again? And because he wanted to open the highways to mankind. I mean, he really did that. He created freedom. But we just said in our posturing earlier this morning that some other things happened, and I need your help.
well, first, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Jim. I was struck listening to your talk about how philosophical it was, implicitly at least, especially the part about the relation between technology and values, big questions of values. This has been a rocky year for many tech companies, including social media companies, from the standpoint of public opinion. And my hunch is that the reason for the public pushback is that everybody knows that technology changes the way we live. And this raises the question, how should we live? What is a good life? What kind of cities do we want? How do we want to communicate and share information with one another? And to answer these questions, we find ourselves debating, or at least needing to debate, big questions about freedom, about community, about renewing our civic life.
You know, and I was at a TED, I've been going to TED for 30 years, and we had a out in the hallway discussion about how technology, being as successful as it has been, can make us more hedonistic. You know, how do you know that? We gained weight. Everyone gained weight when we could delegate things that we used to have to do manually. Or it can be evil, and there's some religions in the world that want to crush it. The way we're thinking about Ford's direction is we want it to empower the lives of people. And we're wrestling with some of these questions that are like trade-offs or paradoxes.
Right.
And I know you've started to think about that.
Well, if it's true that we need a public debate once we reach these really big social and civic questions, the obvious question is, what does that debate look like in the concrete? So here's what I suggest, that we do a small experiment here, if people are willing, actually to take one topic, quite a big topic raised by new technology, and see how people reason their way through it. Shall we try?
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I did this once in an audience of business leaders, and it's really good, so have at it.
Okay. Are you willing to do this, to join in? All right, consider 3 companies that know a lot about us. Amazon knows what books we've ordered, and now many other products. Uber knows where we've been. They had a launch party in Chicago, and notorious as a kind of parlor trick. They showed a God's eye view of all the rides being taken at that moment in a certain part of Manhattan. And then to make it even more interesting, they de-anonymized the riders for some recognizable ones. And a person at the party texted someone she recognized and said, "I see you're on your way to Madison Avenue and 23rd. And the person was disquieted, to say the least. They call that the stalker view. There's a third company, less well known than the first 2. I read about it. It's called the Sleep Number Mattress Company. They will optimize your sleep by enabling to set your mattress exactly right. But they get data about how you sleep, how much you roll around, how much you weigh, whether there's someone else in the bed, how many other people are in the bed. And it all goes up into the cloud, and they send you the optimal setting for. Have you ever heard of this?
I have this bed, and
you have?
And
you have it.
And in addition to Kathy, there's Ozzy and Rudy, the 2 beagles. You think it knows that they're in there in bed?
What is it? Who?
Ozzy and Rudy. They're my 2 beagles.
Your dogs?
My dogs, yeah. They're there.
Somewhere in the cloud, they know about your dog. Here's the question. Suppose your personal data at one of these companies was hacked. Which would bother you the most? Which would you consider a deeper assault on your privacy? And I want to take a vote by a show of hands.
Yeah. Very untech-like, but this
all right,
works.
yes. This is a low-tech vote.
Yeah, low-tech system.
How many would be most troubled if everybody knew what books and products you had ordered on Amazon? That would not bother not very many people.
No.
How many, all right, we'll do the mattress next. How many would be troubled if your sleeping habits were revealed to the world? More than books.
Yeah.
And you.
Yeah, I didn't know that, so I put my hand up.
And how many would be most bothered if the world knew where you had been, your location data?
Uh-huh.
Look at that. So it seems to me that the plurality are most bothered. You voted for the sleep data because you've got that mattress.
Right.
But what do you, let's hear someone in a way that's counterintuitive. Because why is privacy most deeply offended if people know where we have traveled? In a smart city, for example. Is there someone here who voted the gravest threat to privacy is the data location. Who can explain why? What is it about your privacy that is most deeply violated by that being known about you? Who will offer us an account?
And we have mics right here.
And we have Mike run. All right, yes, go ahead. Stand up. Tell us your name. We'll get you a microphone. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Dimitri Carbonel. I'm from France. And one of the reasons why I think it would be such a problem is that then we would know all my connections, the people I have, all the habits I have.
Right.
And I don't know exactly how all this data could be used, maybe in a way, in good ways, but also in the bad way. And how we could even manipulate me.
What would the bad way, what do you worry about, really?
Well, there's different things. The first thing is asking me to do things or manipulate me. Maybe even to buy things I don't want to buy.
Right.
Or even other people that want to maybe harm me. And on the other side, maybe then can use this data against me.
Right.
And it's a kind of a fear after. And in fact, I'm in IoT, so I'm pretty aware about that type of topic.
Good. Okay, thank you for that. Is there someone else? Yes, go ahead. We'll get you a microphone. Please tell us your name. And you voted also. How did you vote?
I voted with Uber, so...
That would bother you the most?
That would bother me most.
Why?
Because I actually work in security, and for someone to know where I'm located as far as my home, and then to know where or when I have left my home and how long I've been gone from my home would definitely disturb me. And my name is Larry Turner with Power Level Technology.
Larry.
Check me out online.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. Is there someone, we've heard from two people who worry most about the privacy associated with location, where they've been.
Has anybody ever had, like, a crime committed against them? Sorry if this has happened in your life, and the robber got in a car and took off.
Right.
Would you want us to know where that robber went to catch him?
Yes, I would. Yeah. Well, we can ask either of our two. What about that? That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? So,
Are you willing to trade that?
You left, we didn't know where to find you, so we needed... All right, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Well, the question, well, imagine that you're in your car and somebody accosts you, robs you, and they get in another car and they take something really valuable from you and they leave. Do you want us to know where the robber is at that instant to catch him?
No, I don't want to know the robber, because the problem is that I go to the robber, there's a risk that after he harms me back. But what I would like is that there's somebody, like the police, that would get back to him and then take back my goods.
But not using data location, not using a smart grid that can locate that car.
Well, you know, the point is, concerning data, I want data to be used for the right service, that it made sense. I mean, just to give you an example, if, for instance, I use Google Maps, I'm okay to provide the location. But on the other side, if I download a game, I don't want to provide my location. If the data makes sense to the service given, then okay. Otherwise, no.
All right, thank you for that. Let's hear if there's someone who voted for one of the other two as the gravest threat, and who doesn't think that the Uber data is all that significant a violation of privacy. Who will reply to the arguments that we've heard so far? Those of you who voted for the other categories.
Here's some.
Let's see. There's a woman toward the back, halfway back. Yes, stand up. Come to the. Tell us your name and which one bothered you the most?
So my name is Arlene Kern, and I voted for the Amazon for a couple of reasons. One, Amazon being the company that they are, I expect them to be very, very careful with my data, so a breach would bother me more. The second reason is I feel if Amazon uses this data to determine goods and even services that the general populace really gravitates towards, it
Right.
could take away some of my potential freedom of choice in the future because they're going to migrate towards the populace versus everybody having a unique choice.
Right, good. All right, thank you for that. I'd like to ask a follow-up question. Just to take a survey, I was struck watching the medical use, the person incapacitated in the car who had a diabetic seizure or a heart attack. Connected to the grid, there must be, that person's medical data enables the first responders to come to be prepared. Now, I'm guessing it's voluntary whether we would want our medical data to be uploaded.
That's right. That's what Don said. You would opt in.
You would opt in. I'd be interested, let's just see what the opinion here. How many, given that choice and seeing the opportunity, how many would opt in and how many would not opt in? How many would opt in? Raise your hand.
So, that's like when you go to have a blood test today. Imagine you're really sick and they find out that you're a drug user because of what the blood test is.
Right.
So you see, you're opting in for your health.
Yes.
And the doctor's going to find out something you don't want shared.
Right.
But you trade that. So something's happened in the analog world where you're trading some of these things for some benefit. Is that fair?
Well, whether it's certainly a fair description. Whether it's a fair trade is
question.
Is the question that we.
That's right.
Okay. Let's see how many would not opt in. How many would not take that deal? Keep your hands up. Now, suppose we revise it. If you opt in, it's still voluntary. Your health insurance company will give you a 30% discount on your premiums. Then, would you still refuse to opt in? Some
much less.
That people are worried about that. They don't want the insurance. But that's a gain, isn't it?
Yeah,
Do you think people are going to worry, even about this valuable health thing, that the smart city will be so smart, it'll know more about us than makes us comfortable?
Well, and when we started talking about this, I told him, in Henry Ford's day, imagine that the community, the civic life, was centered around the church. And one Sunday, Michael doesn't show up at church, but everyone goes, "Where's Michael?" Now, let's say Michael doesn't want anybody to know where he is, but the church isn't satisfied until it knows where Michael was.
Right.
I'm talking 1919 or something like that.
Low-tech data collection.
In the analog world, secrets were exchanged about people. The community, you went in the general store and you hadn't been there a while. Where have you been? And so what we've been saying is that over time, humans find what these boundaries are, where they're making these trades, and they're willing to make them. But I think the core of that is they have control over that versus some force over them. And this is kind of the plausibility that we're taking into this question is it plausible for us to take technology in its most extreme promising form and not have it make us more hedonistic, not be evil that we squash it, but that unlocks the power of who we were supposed to be?
I think the low-tech version of what, after all, is a kind of surveillance, that's a way of concentrating our minds on the question.
That's right.
Now, one possible reply to that is, back in the old, intimate, small town where there were gossips who would talk about where I was if I wasn't in church or in synagogue, a lot of people were not so happy about that kind of low-tech surveillance.
That's right.
And what they did was, they got in a car, and they got on the open road, and they escaped what they felt were the suffocating confines of those communities. And in a way, the car and the open road symbolized a kind of freedom from community. And yet, what strikes me now is with new technology, a community having been atomized and eroded in downtown areas, as you described, you're suggesting that today We can, if we think hard about it, use new technology to strengthen, to rebuild community in downtown areas and gathering places so that we can enrich the common life. Do I have that right?
You've got that right, and that passion that somebody feels in that Mustang at the moment they hear that sound, and we can have sound in the future when it's different propulsion systems, you're not going to have to give that up in the future, because that's what we understand about people and their passion for vehicles. But what I know is this, that we're just beginning this conversation. It's something that you can hear has lots of edges to it, and I'm the kind of guy that wants to lean into this. And I have a belief, as I told you, about how Bill and I think about it. So I want to thank you, Michael, for coming, and my entire Ford team, and all of you for being here today. As I started to say, for generations, the automotive industry is largely focused just on that object, one part of the equation, served us well. But we know that won't work when it comes to the new smart mobility. We need to take this broader systems view that my team talked about. You know, after all, what's the point of building amazing technology if those solutions don't improve the destination where you're going? And at Ford, we've always sought to work with the most forward-looking and imaginative innovators and engineers. We've done it for 115 years, and that's not going to change. And none of us humbly have all the answers, but I know we'll be on an extraordinary and worthwhile journey together. So if you're interested in learning more or partnering with us, please take some time to come see us in the North Hall today. We're open for business there. And thank you very much, and have a great CES.
Thank you.